to me, the company culture is what the employees do in response to how leadership is sharing their vision.
Mm. Welcome to the Home Service Success Podcast, your resource for growing your HVAC, plumbing, electrical, and residential contracting business through mindset development, sales, and marketing strategy. Today's guest is an HR and safety compliance business partner specializing in the HVAC, plumbing, electrical, and roofing industries. He's the owner of The Big Picture Consulting, specializing in employee relations, benefits, employment law, compensation, compliance, and everything HR related. He touts himself as the least popular guy that every contracting business needs, but I, for one, beg to differ on that first part. He's a pretty popular guy. You might have heard of him as HR Guy. He's a master contributor to Facebook groups and discussion forums, and he's helped guide the industry into better employee relations and is always there to answer questions. So I'm very excited to introduce our guest today, Ian Schotanus. Welcome, Ian.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. And it's Schotanus.
Oh, I did. I screwed up the pronunciation even though I asked. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for correcting me. How's it going, Ian? Thanks for coming on.
I'm doing well. It's good to get a break from the action and got all sorts of fun HR stuff going on in the world today. So,
oh, I know. It's been a crazy summer for everybody. And I know, recruitment's been a huge pain point. Retention's been kind of a pain point / fear of, firing. So we're going to get into a little bit of that today. But before we get into the nitty gritty, Ian, I just actually learned today that you, were in the trades, boots on the ground before you got into HR. So I'm curious, how did your story start and how did you end up being HR Guy?
Well, my story, my working story began, my first job was the US Navy. So I went in for advanced electronics and I had the pleasure of working on the 3 largest AC units on the ship. Also helped wire the first network computers on board our ship and all sorts of other fun stuff that I'm not really at liberty to talk about. And
well, maybe that's where your compliance and process oriented brain comes from, right?
Well, yeah, I started off as a technician. I've always been involved with computers and electronics in general. And then the Navy introduced me to mechanics and the AC and the electrical and even plumbing. And then, from there, I bounced around doing different things with Gateway Country Computers while that was still a thing, and worked at Best Buy in retail management, Geek Squad as a repair technician, picked up business degrees while I was doing that, and just kind of flowed along. And it turned out that I was unfortunately one of the disgruntled employees that always knew better than the bosses. So after being on the wrong side of the HR table, I found myself at loose ends and opportunity presented itself to start building a program specifically for contractors to focus on HR and safety compliance.
To deal with employees like yourself.
To deal exactly with people like me. And 12 years later, here I am as the HR guy on Facebook, and I'm got my own consulting firm, and I'm helping people wherever I can.
Well, I love that. I love how your stories come full circle. Like you were the disgruntled. Well, you describe yourself. I maybe would push back. I can't really picture you as a disgruntled employee, but we'll run with it.
I'm in a lot better place now.
Okay, that's fair enough.
I don't know. I feel like I could see that scary side of Ian as like an employee, yeah, I could see just enough of it.
I'm a little opinionated, but now it's my job to be opinionated.
There you go. And people actually listen this time instead of being like, so you found a good niche for yourself. Oh my God, that's so funny. So, okay, now today, what are some of the conversations that you've had, let's say in the last 6 months, around just common pain points around employee relations? Like what's going on right now?
Well, of course, as we all know, COVID.
Mm.
COVID is a huge issue, has been for more than the last year, and it's really not letting up the gas as we have this resurgence. A lot of powerful opinions on every aspect of COVID, from the disease itself, where it came from, what should be done to minimize the impact, what level of risk is it, how should we deal with employees and requesting time or any safety precautions? How do we deal with customers who are requesting vaccinated employees? And what can you ask? And, and having an entire plan around that. But that's not just unique to the trades, except for the fact that the trades are sending people into customers' homes. So that increases the risk and increases the visibility, and you just have to know what your answers are going into it. So that's big, first and foremost.
I mean, Davis, I know I always do this. I always know I throw us for a loop on the topic, but I mean, Ian, can we talk about this specifically for just a moment? Like, can you require vaccinations? I mean, I just saw today in the Wall Street Journal that I don't want to say the name of the company because I forget who it was, but a huge company, I think it was like a food company or something like that in the US, just announced that they're going to require vaccination for all employees. So can you require vaccination? And then what do you do with things like customers and that are asking for it? Like, how do you handle those types of things? The short version of it.
Yes.
Just so that people can get some clear answers, because I don't know what those answers are.
So yes, you can require vaccinations because it is being heavily promoted by the government. So that is the cover for liability if anything turns sideways, whether the conspiracy theorists are right, whether, who knows what's going to happen. So yes, you can, and especially when you can make a definitive case, like I'm sending my employees into customers' homes. It's not just for the protection of the customer that I want my team vaccinated, but also for my team's protection, so that they're less at risk of catching COVID or anything else. The office staff accommodation is would be a bit more advised because there's less customer facing, less direct interaction, and less legitimate reason to require it. But even there, you can require it because it is being pushed at the highest levels. You can ask employees about their vaccination status. They don't have to tell you. If they choose not to, and you have policies surrounding vaccinated or unvaccinated, you just treat those that refuse to answer as unvaccinated. There's no downside there. You just have to be consistent in what you're doing. If you're going to respect your employees' privacy and just try to stay out of the fray, then you're in the position that you have to explain to customers that they're requesting a vaccinated tech, but you're not tracking that information and you're not forcing your employees to. But we are doing X, Y, and Z to ensure both your safety and our technicians' safety to do the job that you're hiring us to do. So when can we set that appointment? There are answers, but it all starts with what is the employer, what is the business owner wanting to do? And that's always my first question. What do you want to do out of this? And then how can we get you there?
Got it. So you need to make the decision, be clear about it, talk to the company about it, set it in policies and procedures, and then move forward. And my only other question about this is, can you require certain employees be vaccinated and certain not? Like, can you require somebody that steps foot in a home be vaccinated, but leave office up to them? Or is it either got it.
Because just like most things dealing with HR and employee management policies, different classifications of employees can have different policies. You can have different benefits. You can have different safety requirements just because of the nature of their job.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for clarity on that. I know I see the questions all the time. I hear our clients talking about it. Like, now we can just say, go listen to the first 5 minutes of this podcast.
There you go.
Amazing. So it's funny. What I picked up here is like people that are being wishy-washy about it or have changed things or like like they're probably the ones actually struggling the most with this versus the people that have just defined it and that it is what it is.
And this ties into what else we're going to be talking about in the employee retention and team morale and maintaining a profitable business while going through all these societal challenges. Because you have to be clear, but just like most other things, you have to get employee engagement. They have to believe in your vision. You're selling them on your vision of how the company should run, or your view of COVID and the vaccinations and whatnot. You have to be willing to accept feedback and figure out where your lines are. But once you have those lines, you just need to follow it. But that doesn't mean that you can't change it later. Just do it with intention and clarity. That's what causes most lawsuits, is lack of control of expectations.
Ian, I love this segue. It's like we're using COVID as a lens really over your entire retention and your messaging and expectation setting, whether it's COVID or everything else that's involved with running a business.
Absolutely. I mean, compensation plans is another big topic out there of, do you pay hourly? Do you pay performance pay? Do you go on commissions? What's best for the business? What's best for the customer? What's best for the employee? All of those things, as long as the employee is getting paid, they'll put up with just about anything. As long as you're paying them legally, the government will put up with anything because they get their taxes. And as long as the people are doing the work and doing it with relative smile on their face, the customers will be happy. So it just comes down to getting everybody on the same page for why they're being paid in this way, why you're charging this, and just having the same vision and working towards the same goal.
Well, and I think it also applies to like setting your values. So if leadership at your company is saying one thing, but they're doing another thing, you can't expect those values to trickle down and actually like be put into practice by your employees. Like you really have to live it and breathe it. And then that creates that culture and that creates that structure for people to really thrive within.
Absolutely. There's always a number of conversations out there about company culture and what it actually is. And it's pretty subjective. To me, the company culture is what the employees do in response to how leadership is sharing their vision. So leadership shares their vision through direct interaction, conversations that are held in passing, coordinated meetings, the policies that they set, the training rhythms, how confident they are in their operations. All of that's going to lead the employees to respond in certain ways. And the more employees respond in similar ways, that is going to detail your company culture. So it's not like you can just walk in and stamp a company culture into place. It's something that has to be cultivated. And it's so easy to make that mistake, using Facebook snippets.
Yeah, I agree completely with that. I mean, in the last 16, 15, 18 years or something, I built 3 different companies, and every single one I learned more about like, oh, this is what culture really is. And then I'm like, oh wait, this is what culture really is. And it's like, I'm always learning. And it seems like the more I know about culture, the more I realize that I actually don't know. Like, it's just this constant learning experience and this constant thing. And I think one of the most beneficial things I've ever learned is just being as truthful as you can. Right? Like just being truthful, transparent, that word gets thrown around a lot. I think all 3 of us know what we mean here. It's not like you show everybody everything, but just being a good human, right? Transparent, truthful, like not trying to always put out this vibe that like, everything, just putting out like, hey, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to try this. And, oh, you know what? We tried that and it just didn't work. And now we're going to try this. And then, this is how we want everybody to kind of follow suit.
Absolutely. Everybody has to be trusting leadership's intentions. And that's a challenge throughout society right now, is so many people are quick to define the facts of a situation based on their subjective feelings about their perception. So not only are the feelings subjective, The perception is subjective and may not have all of the information. Almost no effort is ever put in to figuring out what the intention was of the person giving that initial message or putting out that ad or whatever that has you offended today. And that carries through into the job, into the job sites and into the office when you have people talking at each other instead of with each other.
It's so true.
I love
And
that.
Ian, one of the things that you mentioned before we started recording is the idea of like the stay interview. So talking to people that have been around for 6 months or more, or whatever, like, why do you love working here? So you're reinforcing those values, or sometimes maybe they come up with something that they shouldn't, maybe isn't compliant or, isn't the right answer. So tell us a little bit about that.
So when I go, one of my services that I offer is on-site visits. And so when I go on site, I fill a lot of different roles and just kind of like the entire Department of Labor, all 22 divisions rolling through your office, warehouse, and shop, except that there are no fines and fees attached at the end of this visit. So I'll do a safety walkthrough. I'll look over your employee files. I'll even do some IT work if, you're having problems, because I have the skills. But for the team morale and the, seeing where the company culture is, you can't get that from leadership, like I've already explained. You have to get it from the employees. So I conduct stay interviews with however many employees I can get my hands on. And I don't take names. I don't, this is completely anonymous. And so I ask, what are some of the things that you like about being here? What keeps you here versus seeing if there's greener grass? Have you looked for another position in the last, 6 months? And why didn't you take it? I can ask these direct questions because I'm an independent third party. And then I ask one thing: if you can change one single thing, what would it be? And so, but that is just the minimized, okay, let's give a little bit of purpose, see if there's something that's actionable right now, but let's focus on the positives. And then once I have that list of positives, I get with management and ownership, and we just develop, okay, these are the game plans to move forward and reinforce these.
So I love this because you're working from the ground up versus working from the top down. And that, I think, is counterintuitive. And it's not something that I hear a lot of business owners talking about. That's like, let's create this vision way up here, this kind of North Star, this thing that exists out in space, and then hope that it trickles down. But you're taking the exact opposite approach. And I think that's frankly the right approach. It's much more organic and it's much more true to what's actually happening on the ground floor.
Do you build a house from the roof down or the foundation up?
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. I deal with contractors. It's as simple as that. You need the employees to build that operation and to execute and get you to the goals that you have in mind. So you have to get them all on the same page and all working on the same team.
Yeah. And I think the other point is that culture exists whether you want it to or not.
Mm-hmm.
So think about what your employees are doing when they're grabbing a drink after work, or they're hanging out. Maybe they're hanging out on a Sunday, whatever. That culture and those conversations are happening whether you want them to or not. So you might as well, work with it instead of against it.
Absolutely. Now there's a difference between tapping into the communications of the employees and having everybody have a voice so that you can monitor and, cultivate that company culture. There's a difference between that and allowing rumor mills and water cooler talk. And that's where the, little cancerous tumors in the company are going to grow, and eventually something's going to break. And if you're caught blindsided by it, you're in a heap of trouble and probably a lawsuit or two.
Yeah, it's almost too late by the time it's come to leadership at that point. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow.
So that's why it's important that everybody have the trust in the leadership. And if there's a problem, if there's a challenge, if it's perception versus reality, that they feel comfortable in voicing their concerns and try to be part of the solution. Everybody should be encouraged to be part of the solution, not just digging at a scab.
So if somebody doesn't have somebody like you, or they haven't hired you yet to go in and do stuff like this, I mean, what's a couple ways that you can start to have that water cooler conversation and those types of conversations come up to leadership and management and stuff like that, so that it's not happening, or so that they're actually getting that feedback and maybe even diminishing the rumor mill?
If for trying to course correct a company culture that could be considered toxic or undermining the company vision, that is something that is extremely difficult to do without outside help. You know, what makes my position a little bit different, other than just my total mindset, apparently, is that I approach things from the viewpoint of the employees, but I am the employer resource. In-house HR teams they're supposed to be the advocates for the employee. And then employers have to make business decisions based on what the HR team in-house is saying. This is what you legally have to do. This is, and there's a disconnect there, and it causes animosity between the employer and the HR team. Whereas I come in, I flip the house upside down and say, okay, I'm here to get you to where your business goals are. I'm going to work with your HR team on staff and help educate them on how to keep an eye on the bigger picture. That's what it takes, is being able to look at the entire thing and not take each individual situation personally. Because if you allow the personal feelings to interfere with your business decisions, you're going to make bad business decisions. You're going to respond to employee situations poorly. And you have to be able to take that step back. A lot of people cannot do that on their own. So it takes a trusted resource, even just a vent. I act as a psychologist. I act as a couples counselor among management members. I'm releasing new services that's going to put me a little bit of FaceTime with employees even, and just as that resource that is there to help resolve problems before they become problems.
Yeah, I was going to ask actually about that, Ian. How do you get candid responses from folks? And this I also want to curtail this conversation towards like, and this might be rephrasing Stephen's question, what do you see successful teams doing right now that's working? Or even teams that have, struggled with cultural problems in the past and that have actually revised them and now are on a pathway to success. But yeah, I guess let's start with how do you actually get candid responses from your employees? I mean,
they have to trust the person that they're giving the messages to.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for candid responses, you can start with a simple SurveyMonkey free survey that you send out anonymously that they can reply. It can't be traced back if it's programmed correctly, but give them the opportunity, the classic, employee suggestion box. It's cliche, but there is value there. Now, if you're going through and you can tell the handwriting, that's a bit of a problem, and that's why most of those suggestion boxes are filled with cobwebs at this point. But SurveyMonkey opens a whole new door, and then again, external resources that can help provide a professional, a trusted face going. Okay, HR. Well, employers they innately don't like HR because they get in the way of doing business most of the time. Well, employees know HR is going to, generally help them get what they want. So they're going to trust more innately. And then I can take that and I can transform it into what it is that the employer needs, and everybody wins. Yeah. So I just rarely have any problem getting candid responses from owners or from employees because I speak their language.
So my sense is like really that like building successful teams, it's very mysterious because you're working with personality types that are hard to pinpoint. It's hard to like really gauge people's honesty or how transparent they're really being. So like, to me, it seems like a really successful, like the ideal team is something that just happens magically because you happen to hire the right people at the right time with the right set of values and ideals, and they're all working towards the same goal. It's like that rarely happens, and it seems like, again, it's magic versus what you're talking about is very kind of system oriented and having the right conversations at the right time. So I don't know, like I'm just throwing this out there because it is mysterious.
There is no one true way. There is no box that you can put a check mark into and have that perfect team that you're worry free.
Right.
That's not human nature. That's not business nature. And it just defies all reality. Mm-hmm. So what you need to do is you need to communicate with intention. And communication, again, is the most underutilized tool in society across the board, not just within each individual team. If you want to know something, ask. Right now, our society is all geared towards your feelings are the most important thing. Matters more than reality. It matters more than the intention of person who, is inspiring those feelings. But most people strive for some form of control over their lives. And that's where a lot of this backlash comes from, is because they don't feel they have a voice. They don't feel, whether it's true or not, it doesn't matter. It's their feeling. And their feelings dominate everything. So if you ask with intention, you're trying to find the pathways of communication to get not only what they want, but also be able to give them what they want in a way that works for you too. You can't just do that on the fly, and you cannot do a cookie cutter. That's why company cultures have to be cultivated, not plugged in.
I love that you're using intention as a word over and over. Davis knows how much I love intention. Like we talk about it all the time. Like everything you go do, what's your intention? What's your intention on this meeting? What's your intention on this client thing that you're working on? What's the intention on this phone call that you're about to have? Because we always have an intention, right? Now, sometimes we don't consciously know what it is, but unfortunately in today's society, a lot of the intentions are, I'm going to go into that meeting and prove that I'm fucking right, which is a terrible intention, right? That does not open the door for communication whatsoever. So I love that you're harping on this intention because it's so wide in business, right? And even just human interaction. So having that clear intention of what am I trying to do here? What do I want to get out of this? What do I want to put into this? Is just so unbelievably important. In fact, if you probably just did that one thing better every day, your whole life would change, personally, professionally, your happiness level, like everything would change. And just having the awareness around what is your intention is something that I think very, very few people have awareness around.
I love that, Stephen. And then just to tack on to that, sometimes your intention can just be to listen. And Ian, that's kind of what you were saying. It's like, it's okay just to listen. I mean, usually that's maybe the best intention, especially when it comes to cultivating a culture.
Absolutely. And my clients, nobody ever just calls to say hi. They call because there's some sort of earth-shattering issue that they're now faced with, and they need some sort of immediate peace of mind. So they call me, and sometimes it's just to vent. This employee did this ridiculous thing, and, there's no clear grounds to terminate them immediately or for cause. Or if we let them go, the rest of it, okay, fine. Relax. We're going to get through this. What are you feeling about this? What's the situation? Give me the details. And just going through the details, the answers normally present themselves. But you have, even the employers, and probably especially the employers and managers, have to have a safe, resource to be able to contact and just let it out. I tell all my clients, treat me like an employee. I'm part of the management team. I'm just down a really long hallway. Yeah, because that's what I do. That's the role I serve. And that's what HR truly is. It's not the paperwork. It's not the regulations. It's getting humans to relate to each other.
I love that. I think that, Ian, we go back, like, I don't know exactly how old you are, but I think back to, I wasn't quite working in the 80s, like office environment, right? But I kind of remember the movies and stuff growing up and what it was like and watching my parents. And back then it was, you treated employees like dirt for the most part, right? It was like, you better be fortunate that you have a job here and you'll do whatever the hell I tell you to do, whenever the hell I tell you to do it. Otherwise, you just won't get paid. Well, that's shifted now, right? Like we live in a completely different type of environment now, and we have to be more conscious of the human side of it. I can't wait to see what your response is, because you're smiling. But I believe that we live in a different type of environment where there's so many different types of opportunities that the employee has more options, and the employers need to think differently. They need to understand the human side of it. And then, sometimes we swung a little too far with like the whole, I want to talk about my feelings and my feelings matter the most. And it's like, all right, come on, some of this stuff is ridiculous. Let's meet in the middle so that we can create an environment that is a win-win. You can have a place to express yourself and the company can have its goals and its visions met so that you can have a safe, happy, fulfilling place to work and consistently get your paycheck. We've got to meet in the middle on that stuff. And we've got to create this broader awareness about what's really happening by educating, I think, both sides, right? Educating the businesses and educating the employees. So why are you smiling? Why are you smiling so big?
Well, because the dynamic of you're going to do what I say because I said to do it, and you're going to do it in this way because I said to do it this way. That actually does hold merit in some industries, just not the trades. It does not resonate with contractors, especially. And contractors are not normally your running to a safe space type of, group of people, just from a psychological standpoint. Now, when you say you're going to do it this way, but you don't give them a why, or you don't, use that intentional communication to get them bought in and get the engagement, they're going to disconnect and they're going to be looking for the door. The trades are short-staffed for skilled technicians. A lot of people are trying to recruit, young people to build their own technicians and create a pipeline, which is great, and we need more of that. But everybody needs more seasoned technicians. So that leads to, how do you attract people? How do you make your operation the place where people want to work? And, being able to put even just, putting pictures of company events where there's honest smiles, not staged, not Photoshop nonsense, but, people actually enjoying themselves and having a good time in their uniforms. I mean, some jobs you get home and you just, take off that uniform and go, I don't want to see you till tomorrow, and that's not healthy. But the other factor is that a lot of those industries where you can just say, do it this way every time, it's just the way it is. Think McDonald's, think, the fast food places. It's hard work, but it's not very mind-bending, engaging work. Technicians, they have to solve problems. They're using independent discretion all the time. You're sending them into customers' homes. You have to have a higher level of trust for that individual. And you have to respect that they do have their own independent, decision-making skills, and you can guide it, but you can't force it. And whenever you see something on, some of the Facebook groups, I normally stick with owners only, but there are a couple groups that are a blend of technicians and owners, and those get pretty entertaining. And I do a lot more instant message responses than wade into that mess.
Right.
Because they'll come out of the woodwork and go, you're out of your mind. I'd be looking for another job, or I'll start my own company, or, great. That was already an option.
So Ian, over the course of the years that you've been doing this, do you feel that the competition for techs has really increased the quality of employment, the quality of work that technicians, employees have now at companies?
Unfortunately, no,
Mm.
because the opportunity has not been realized. It's been a race to the bottom just to get warm bodies.
Wow.
And I would rather see a company that has 25 current employees go all the way back down to owner operator if those 25 employees are not going to help you actually reach your goals.
I'm surprised to hear you say that. I figured over the past 3 to 5 years, whatever it's been, where we've had a shortage of techs, that people are going to have cultivated better cultures and better systems and, better work environments for their employees.
There's been improvements in efficiencies, but most owners in the trades are previous technicians themselves, and they still think like a technician, which is
so they're repeating old cycles.
Exactly. They remember the heyday when they were, first strapping on, and it was you work hard, you're going to be rewarded. We're going to go get beers, and it's all good, and shop talk, and
Are you just saying this because you're the HR guy?
No,
there is a lot of work to be done.
There is, and it's one of those things that you're not wrong to want to be the way that you are. You just have to be aware of the possible impacts and be prepared for the consequences.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you not to, do the traditional shop talk. If that's how you speak, I'm the last person to, curtail anybody how they actually speak. But if you cross that line and you're doing something discriminatory, I'm going to raise the red flag. You still have to take action on it, but at least you're going to go into it with your eyes open. But as far as the question goes, the issue is that contractors dislike dealing with HR. If they dealt with HR or cultivated HR managers as part of the true management team, not just the people that they put in charge of filing the employee files or, making copies of the write-up or, whatever paper pushing tasks that they're doing. If any company that is really successful and has a positive company culture, pretty well guarantee has an HR manager, a true HR manager in their management team somewhere. Somebody that's more on the management side than on the employee side. And then they have support people underneath them that are fielding the questions directly and having that personal relationship with the employees. I just serve that role for companies that are too small to hire somebody like me in-house.
So what I'm gathering is really, as an industry, we're kind of in this awareness phase. We're suffering challenges that were produced by old paths, old cycles, and now we're waking up a little bit, maybe just starting to solve some of these issues and put them into practice, but there's a long way to go.
True. And then there's the complicating factor of what is the government going to do? What are the actual compliance risks that you're running? And the wrong person gets disgruntled at the wrong time. Everybody knows you can take your story to half a dozen lawyers and see who's got an appetite to take on a business owner.
Ugh. And that's where the fear and anxiety and nerve-wracking, all of that comes from. Yeah.
And that's why I work.
Don't get me started on attorneys.
I'm not fond of them myself. I'd rather save you the effort of having to deal with them.
Yeah. I like the good attorneys because they very much serve a purpose. And I have some friends that are great humans, but holy cow, that whole industry is just a little interesting. To say the least.
A couple of my clients are actual lawyers as well. So
yeah.
But we serve different functions.
Yeah.
This is true. Well, Ian, we got to wrap it up, but I want to say thank you so much for coming on and sharing some of your experience and shedding some light onto all the issues that I think are just very common pain points that we're suffering together as an industry. And you are leading the charge to fixing a lot of these issues and spreading positive information and being a resource. So I really want to thank you for being an HR guy.
Well, it really is my pleasure. I enjoy helping the trades, and I'm out there giving my opinions, but just remember, anything you see on Facebook is only ever scratching the surface.
Surely. Well, so that's a great segue. What is it? Thebigpictureconsulting.com. If people, want to check out your business, what you do, get in touch. And then, of course, you can find Ian on Facebook. That's kind of your key social platform, but I think you're already also on LinkedIn, Twitter. Where else can people find you?
I am on Facebook and LinkedIn, and I do have an Instagram account, but I really don't use it.
Okay.
So Facebook is going to be your best bet for getting a hold of me. My name on Facebook is HR Guy.
Easy enough. All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening. If you want to join the home service success discussion, join our Facebook group. HR Guy is a consistent contributor there, so you can find him just in that group. And also check out witdelivers.com for more information around home service success and marketing and sales strategy. So appreciate you all for listening and have an awesome rest of your day.